our second presenter for today's event. Okay, I'm trying. Okay, for our second presenter is the person of Dr. Mohammed Auwal Ibrahim. He's the president, Nigerian Young Academy, NYA. His bio, Dr. Mohammed is a senior lecturer of biochemistry at Ahmadu Bello University with experience in drug design and discovery against trypanosomiasis, malaria, and type 2 diabetes. He's the president of the Nigerian Young Academy, NYA, an organization composed of competitively selected young, energetic, and brilliant scholars, as well as leaders in their respective fields across universities, research institutes, and industries in Nigeria, and therefore serves as a unified platform for interaction among young researchers below the age of 45 in Nigeria from various research disciplines and regions of the country. His PhD was obtained from University of KwaZulu-Natal, UKZN, South Africa, followed by a postdoctoral fellowship at University of Pretoria, South Africa, 2 years, and another fellowship at the Japan Society for the Promotion of Science, conducted at National Institute for Advanced Industrial Science and Technology, Tsukuba, Japan, for 1.5 years. He has authored 92 research articles in impact scientific journals and holds the honor of being selected in the 2018 Young Scientist Program of the International Union of Biochemistry and Molecular Biology. So Dr. Mohammed Ibrahim will be speaking to us on the Africa we want is a healthy one, research and innovation in drug design from local natural products. So thank you, Dr. Mohammed, and we hope to hear from you now. Dr. Mohammed, are you there, please?
Yes, I'm there.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for the for the kind introduction, and I'm very sorry I'm having some cold and my voice is not very good. Thank you very much for the kind introduction. I also want to join previous
Dr. Mohammed, we can't hear you again, please. Hello?
Can anybody hear him?
I can't hear him from my end.
I'm hearing you, sir.
Okay. Yeah, I can't hear Dr. Mohammed. Let me confirm what's going on.
Okay, sir, please go ahead with that.
I'm sorry, I'm having some network fluctuations. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you now.
Yeah, I'm sorry, truly. I'm having so many network fluctuations. Yeah, I was trying to introduce the fact that the first aspiration of the Africa Agenda 2063 look at that Africa should be a prosperous continent based on inclusive growth and sustainable development. And actually, to achieve this, one of the key goals for the continent is to ensure that the citizens are healthy and they are well nourished, and adequate levels of investment should be made. Now, on that note, efforts have made to promote health issues in Africa, which eventually is supposed to propel economic growth, because we all know that health is wealth, and the health should lead to significant economic benefits within the continent. And we know we in dire need of increase economic activities within the continent, because the continent is presently regarded as a poor continent. So we need to do something with regards to the economic, and that cannot be possible without propelling or improving or promoting our health status on the continent. And on that note, so many effort has been made, but unfortunately, the continent is now presently considered to be the epicenter or the headquarter of diseases in the world. We are being plagued by HIV/AIDS, malaria, diabetes, cancer, and so many other kinds of diseases. And so, therefore, there is serious need for innovative drug discovery and development strategies that is led, or that should be led by Africans, so that we solve our problem, because we are presently considered as the epicenter of, or the headquarter of, so many diseases. Fortunately for us, the solution lies with us, and the solution largely lies with the natural products and medicinal plants that are very abundant within the continent. In fact, luckily for us—
we don't see your screen, or can others see your screen?
No, sir.
No,
Please,
I also cannot see it.
See the screen.
Yes,
Can't
we
see my
can.
screen. What's
Your
wrong with
screen
it?
is just at one corner, but it's not shared, kind of.
your PowerPoint.
Okay, let me stop sharing and then share again.
Okay, sir.
Sorry about that. Let me see. Can you now see?
Not
Is
yet.
it better now?
Okay, just you have to make it slideshow.
That's what I did now.
It's not showing as a slideshow. Can you try scroll? Can you try scrolling through the slides?
Got it.
Can you see it now?
We can see, but it's not moving past any points. It's just at one slide.
Which point is it?
On the
It's on
Can
slide
you go
5.
to the lower
Slide-
part and just press play, maybe?
our solutions
Or not play.
live with us. Okay.
Okay, that's where I am, I think.
Okay, can you play your slides? Click
Yeah, I'm
the-
playing it now. Okay. Somebody will remote control it. Can you see now?
I think we'll just have to make do.
Yes, we can see your screen. Yes, we can.
You
Go
can,
ahead, go
can you
ahead.
see now?
Yeah,
Yes,
go,
okay,
go
thank
ahead. Go ahead. We can.
Yeah.
Is it the way?
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Now, I was saying that we are considered to be the headquarter of so many diseases, and locally, the solution lies with us. And the solution lies with natural products and medicinal plants. And luckily for us, the African continent accounts for more than 25% of higher plants in Africa. But this is largely underutilized. And also luckily, these medicinal plants actually have been propelling drug discovery all over the world. And we have them, but we are extremely underutilizing them. But however, it's worthy also to mention that Africa conducts a lot of basic investigation on drug discovery aspect, but the findings are usually not taken to the clinics and the bedsides. And that is where the main problem is. The clinical development is the major problem as far as drug discovery and development is concerned within Africa. Therefore, we don't translate the knowledge. It eventually do not become useful to the general population. Now, I'll try to use my examples or our examples and our experiences to demonstrate where we are and the limitations of research in drug discovery and development within the African continent. Now, for instance, our first experience, we tried to use a literature-based drug discovery approach. We work with trypanosomiasis, a disease that is also called sleeping sickness. Initially, around 2014, we realized that about 264 plant species within the African continent have been investigated for the anti-trypanosomal activity. And most of of them were quite promising, at least most of them are quite promising, meaning they can be applied in treating trypanosomiasis within the continent. Unfortunately, within that period, only 48 active compounds were isolated, and in fact, only one of those compounds was subjected to preclinical trials. So therefore, we wanted to use that, we wanted to fill that gap by first trying to investigate the anti-trypanosomal activity of some of these compounds. And we started with ellagic acid. It showed us some promising results. We moved to general acetone. General acetone, it was also quite promising. And very recently, last month, we also demonstrated the therapeutic potentials of another compound called beta-inon, and it was also a bit promising. Now, the next thing, and these are just representative, and the next thing we should have done is to now try to take some of these compounds to clinical trials and further development along the drug discovery and development pipeline. But unfortunately, we cannot make progress from that point, from this point. And if we cannot make progress from this point, it means there is no innovation from this point. This is one experience that we had, and this is an African story from this perspective. So no innovation beyond this point. Now, the next experience is where we try to use an indigenous knowledge system-based approach for drug discovery. In this context also, there is a plant called Kaya senegalensis, which is quite very promising, quite potent in killing trypanosomes, and we try to validate that. Subsequently, we also try to understand or to identify the possible bioactive compounds that may be responsible for the activity. And having done that, in fact, for one of the fraction or extract obtained from the plant, we try to even improve the anti-trypanosomal activity of that fraction using vitamin E and also vitamin C. All this are done from the perspective of reverse pharmacology. But unfortunately, we could not go far from because of the same reason. Now, we went back. If you remember, we went back to one of the bioactive compounds. We also tried to investigate how promising it is, and it was also a bit promising. But unfortunately, also the same situation or the same scenario presents itself, that we cannot go beyond this point. The right thing or the best thing to have been done is to now subject some of these things into clinical trials and clinical development, but we cannot move beyond this point, no progress beyond this point, and so no innovation beyond this point. This is the African story, and you can see so far two experiences arriving at the same point. There is no chance of transiting to clinical practice, and therefore we cannot apply it at the knowledge, and therefore we cannot also, the knowledge generated cannot be used to solve problems within the continent, especially from the health perspective. Now, another experience, someone may argue that trypanosomiasis is a neglected tropical disease, and that may account for the reason why we are having so many limitations. But this is, I'm now want to put another example of another disease, which is type 2 diabetes. Presently, Africa is projected to have the highest increase in the prevalence of diabetes in the next few decades. And so looking at this also, we also try to look from that same perspective. We realize that for a period of 13 years, 185 African plant species were investigated to see their anti-diabetic potentials, and some of them were quite very promising. In fact, we went further to validate the anti-diabetic effect of some of the plants, and we used preclinical models, and the results were quite promising. But you can see that we cannot also move beyond that point. And having also that, we also try to use organic chemistry approach to also isolate the actual bioactive compounds in some of these plants. So, so far we are isolated 4, And the next thing to have been done also in this situation is to also attempt to push these compounds into clinical development, clinical trials, clinical development, like I've shown earlier. But unfortunately, we cannot move beyond the same point. So you can see we are also revolving around the same point. From using 3 different experiences, I've demonstrated to us that we all arrive at the same point, and it is the point that limits us from transiting our knowledge into practice, so that we eventually contribute directly to solving the health problems in Africa. So no innovation also beyond this point, and we are stopped. Now, innovation is actually a product of, or a summation of, what we learn and what we apply. And clearly we see from what I've shown you that we have learned so much, because what I've presented as simple, just basic representation. We have learned so much, but we cannot apply it to solve the health challenges in Africa. And I've shown you the missing link. Now, that is where we are, and that is the African story. Now, in summary, some of the challenges that are associated with drug design, drug research and discovery in Africa are that, one, there is issue of lack of innovative technology. There's also a very weak research industry linkage within the African continent. There's also lack of policies from government that promote research and development in drug discovery. Also, very, very important, the issue of poor financing of research. Funding is key. Without funding, we cannot proceed anywhere. And so funding is also a very big challenge. Also presently, there is also a biodiversity loss and unsustainable exploitation of natural resources within the continent. And finally, issue of lack of infrastructure. For instance, basic tools for a very robust isolation of pure chemical products, elucidation of biological mechanisms, and so many more. And especially the issue of the clinical trials. What we all do, the proof of concept data that is usually being generated are usually not eventually translated for the same reason as I've shown earlier. Now, this is the African story from the drug discovery perspective. Now, I want to now tell us that despite the ugly picture that I've fairly painted, that there is also some good news. But the good news is quite limited. The very few success that has been recorded is the production of some anti-diabetic supplements from African hubs led from South Africa, where a lot of products, at least some products, have been produced in the treatment of diseases, and they are done, or they are actually produced from African natural products, and presently even exported to both Europe and Asia. But I want to also tell us that this good news is not possible without citizen participation. And that is why the theme of this conference is quite important. The success story that I've just highlighted was done when considered citizens to be at the center of the process. For instance, the healers who considered or participated directly in that process, and so to re-emphasize the need for citizen participation in most of our research endeavors. So that is, and we have demonstrated it, it's clearly seen from also drug discovery and development point of view. Now, this is the African story from the perspective of drug discovery, and I will now try to now tell us overall that what we need now, the healthy African that we want, should be an Africa, based on what I've all said, should be an Africa that promotes a paradigm shift towards the clinical development of novel drugs from indigenous material to treat African endemic diseases. Like I've said earlier, we conduct so many basic research investigations. So when I say so many, I mean thousands of them, so many repetitions, but they are quite rudimentary and they largely cannot be, they cannot be, there is no transition to especially clinical trials, such that we now see that some of these findings actually being applied on the best side to treat the disease. This is the only way to promote health in Africa, and that will also directly benefit or contribute to the economic development within the continent. Now, that is the perspective from the drug discovery issue. Now, I want to now change gear a bit to also tell us about where we are as far as drug design in Africa is concerned. Drug design presently has actually taken a new dimension globally, and that is actually promoted by the research and development efforts of the big pharmaceutical industries within across the world. So in this context, yeah.
Sorry, till now, the complaints are really too many that the slides actually are still exactly where you started. So, but we just felt like maybe you just need to continue. I guess you are about summarizing, and then subsequently we will provide the links. Please, for all the complaints, we'll provide the slides to everyone to have a look later, please. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes. So we're looking forward to your summary and then some questions. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm really sorry about that. I don't know how that's happened.
Yeah, just go ahead to summarize. Thank you.
Okay, sorry about that. I don't know. Okay, now I was talking about the new shift in drug design within Africa, and I want to tell us that the African scientists have also made attempt to fit into the new paradigm shift in drug design, but the clinical trial and development is still the missing link, as I've earlier discussed. It's also worthy to mention that the spirited attempts of the Africans are a bit still rudimentary. They are also incomplete, and they are generally not comparable, both in quality and quantity, with the rest part of the world. So we need to do more from the drug design perspective. I will also try to use two experiences to show us quickly. And one experience I have, or rather we have, is that we try to design what we call anti-diabetic peptides, peptides that can be used to treat type 2 diabetes. We first started by showing or by elucidating the structural properties of some bioactive peptides with the anti-diabetic activity. And after we successfully did that, we eventually obtained completely or designed completely new anti-diabetic peptides, completely new. SVP, EPA, we also further demonstrated that those peptides that we designed are actually quite promising as far as treating type 2 diabetes is concerned. Further, we also demonstrate that some of these peptides that we design are actually multifunctional. In other words, they can target different aspects of diabetic conditions. Again, we also design new peptide analogs, and we arrive at also another set of peptides that are completely new, and they can be used to treat type 2 diabetes. Unfortunately, just like I've said earlier, even with this, my fourth experience, you see, now looking from drug design perspective, we still have no progress, and we cannot there is no innovation beyond this point. That is the African story, and that's where we are. So you can see from 4 different experiences, 4 different routes, we are arriving at that same point. Now, another experience, the last one, which I will try to summarize, is that structural biology and rational drug design. Drug design and discovery in the developed world presently is mainly focused on rational drug design based on structural biology. And essentially, 2 techniques are used: the structure-based drug design and the fragment-based drug design. On this note, the African scientists have been making attempts to contribute to this trend of drug design and discovery, but I want to inform us that it is practically impossible to completely achieve everything along this line on the African continent. And this is what is actually trending in the world. So you can see this is where we are. This is the African story from the drug design perspective is concerned. Now, to further show you, I also showed some examples of drugs that were produced through this same process, the Zelbraf, the Zenotoclax, and the Onales BIP. All of them are now presently used in treating especially cancer and in different parts of the world, and they are produced through that same process, but we cannot achieve that on the African continent. Now, I will also try to use my experience where, for instance, one of the experiences, we tried to clone a gene. We eventually, after cloning, getting the construct, and then we express the protein. We got the protein. After getting the protein, we also tried to understand the folding of the protein, folding pattern of the protein using circular dichromosome spectroscopy. And subsequently, after doing that, we also screened 874 fragment compounds in a fragment-based drug discovery approach. Eventually, we realized that 66 hits, which were also subjected to a technique called the water-loxy NMR technique that will allow us validate that whether or not some of these compounds we realize can actually bind to the protein and also inhibit the enzyme, which will eventually lead to killing of the parasite. Like I've said, this is the new paradigm, or this is the paradigm shift in drug design all over the world. Eventually, we realized about 10 fragments that were able to bind to the protein, inhibit the protein, and subsequently could kill the parasite and could now serve as drugs against trypanosomiasis. We also try to understand the binding mechanism, and subsequently the protein also because that is this is one of the key things in structural biology. You understand the structure of the protein using X-ray crystallography or cryo-electron microscopy. We all attempted that. And unfortunately, I want to tell us that all this were not done on the African continent. And I want to emphasize to us that this is the new paradigm. This is the paradigm shift in drug design and discovery, but it is not fully possible on the African continent. Not possible fully on the African continent. This is the African story. This is where we are as far as drug design is concerned, and something has to be done. So in summary, I've just informed us that using from so many perspectives of drug design and discovery, either from drug discovery perspective, I used 3 experiences from our labs, and I also used 2 experiences from the drug design approach from our labs. And in that context, especially the drug design, this is what is trending. Most of the present day drugs that are being produced all over the world are produced through that, but you can see it's generally not possible. It's not achievable fully on the African continent. That is where we are. That is the African story. So therefore, my recommendations are that one, the capacity of African scientists need to be developed for drug discovery. That is one. And very importantly, infrastructures such as model laboratories need to be largely separate across the continent. Also, we should try to limit, try to conserve our natural environment. And very importantly, multi-sector, multi-stakeholder, multidisciplinary partnerships and collaborations involving academia, philanthropic organizations, government, and pharmaceutical industries are needed to optimize our potentials and minimize redundancies in delivering new drugs, because there are so many redundancies in the area of drug discovery within the African continent. Now, this is the African story. This is the African story, and you can see that the African continent should be the African continent should be a very healthy continent, and that's unfortunately we cannot maximally achieve that. With that, I said thank you. I acknowledge some of our funders, and with this I say thank you so much, and I'm available for questions, comments, and observations. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Ibrahim. It's been great hearing about medicinal, the prospects we have, where we are, and the challenges we are facing. Thank you so much for that presentation. So we'll be going to our